Tee Higgins, once again, the talk of the town here in Indy. Mike Petraglia inside the Indiana Convention Center in downtown Indianapolis, home, of course, to the 2024 NFL Combine. As we start to look ahead to the NFL Draft at the end of April, all 32 teams are represented here in downtown Indianapolis, as the six-day event really gets underway in earnest on Wednesday and Thursday with workouts. But as the teams gather here, they start to have interviews with prospective NFL draft prospects over the next several days on both sides of the ball and also special teams. But here on Tuesday, Duke Tobin, the director of player personnel for the Bengals, and head coach Zach Taylor, well, they address the media, and topic number one, atop everybody's mind, Tee Higgins. He, of course, was tagged on Friday once it was known that the NFL salary cap would skyrocket by $30 million. The Bengals wasted no time. In the words of Duke Tobin, there was no point in lingering on Tee Higgins and whether they should tag him. They went ahead, tagged him, and made use of that $30 million extra space on the salary cap for next season. Of course, that salary cap tag is about $21.8 million. But to the Bengals, it was really a no-brainer. Duke Tobin saying here on Tuesday, we are a better team with Tee Higgins on the roster. If those words sound familiar, there's good reason, because that's almost word for word what he said in 2023 when the Bengals were rumored to take trade offers for someone like Tee Higgins before he even got to the tag situation. But, of course, the Bengals kept Tee Higgins on the roster for 2023, and they have every intention on keeping him on the roster in 2024. That was really the gist of the message here from both Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor on Tuesday. Zach Taylor going as far as saying it's critical to keep Tee Higgins on the roster and in the building, given his work ethic and his unique skill set as an elite wide receiver with size and the ability to cut out of his breaks and keep full body control. Indeed, that is one of, or several of, the impressive characteristics that Tee Higgins brings to the table and has since he was drafted in the second round behind Joe Burrow back in 2020. Speaking of Joe Burrow, well, the news from Duke Tobin is pretty good. He continues to make progress. He works hard and is in the building almost every single day in the offseason. That is, of course, when he's not going out to Phoenix with the likes of Jamar Chase and DJ Reader and Sam Hubbard and meeting with LeBron James. But he is around the building quite a bit, and the expectation is that he should be ready come the summertime, though the Bengals didn't want to commit to that here on Tuesday. But the expectation is Joe Burrow continues to work on continuing to be Joe. Those words from Duke Tobin here on Tuesday. So it's positive, but you asked Zach Taylor the same question, and he learned, of course, with that right calf strain at the beginning of the season last year, don't put any specific timeline on it. I joked with Zach Taylor when he met with reporters off to the side, you're going to use the words several again? And he said, no. Well, I did get that right, and he's trying to keep it as light as possible. But the attitude with Joe Burrow seems to be a positive one. Progress is being made. But again, in all seriousness, the Bengals do not want to put any specific timetable on when he might begin throwing again, whether that's in the spring, OTAs, minicamp, training camp. They, again, don't want to get into that and go down that path, at least here in late February. What about Joe Mixon? He's an interesting case study. Of course, he is owed that $3 million roster signing bonus, something that Duke Tobin acknowledged here on Tuesday. It's a unique situation. He's due that $3 million bonus a couple of days after free agency begins. So the Bengals have a decision to make there, because certainly it would seem the Bengals would not pay him that $3 million roster bonus and then go ahead and cut him to save cap space. So I don't think that is a possibility. The Bengals, in other words, have a decision to make on Joe Burrow. Asked Duke Tobin how he views Joe Burrow, and he said the team was, quote-unquote, proud of what Joe Mixon was able to do in the 2023 season, a critical part of keeping the Bengals in the playoff hunt with Jake Browning as the quarterback. Of course, Joe Mixon did finish with his third career 1,000-yard rushing season, getting over that milestone in the final game of the season in the win over the Cleveland Browns. But in terms of Joe Mixon's long-term future with the Bengals, Duke Tobin said that's roster building matters, and we're not going to get into that on the podium here in Indianapolis. Well, the Bengals seem to be in good position here as we head into the NFL Combine process. Of course, they've got a lot of holes to fill, probably a couple of defensive tackle positions to look at in the draft very closely, maybe even a wide receiver, perhaps a tight end. Obviously, a right tackle position if Jonah Williams leaves in free agency, which at this point is expected. But certainly there are a lot of decisions that need to be made, and a lot of on-the-field and off-the-field observations will be made starting this week in Indianapolis. We'll have you covered all week long on clnscincy.com. Be sure to check out our YouTube page at the Jungle Roar Pod, youtube.com/@JungleRoarPod. And be sure to follow me, as always, on X, @Trags, TRAGS. Inside the Indiana Convention Center in downtown Indianapolis, home of the 2024 NFL Combine, Mike Petraglia, CLNS Media.